tonight's Olympic preview show. She is sound of body, but still Dominique Dawes is fragile. She has vaulted through childhood, punishing her skeleton and rushing it back to health. Brilliant and beaten up in alternating years, Dawes swept the 4 individual apparatus events at the 1994 Nationals, spent virtually all of 95 injured, then swept the 96 Olympic trials in the absence of Shannon Miller and Dominique Moceanu. She still has pain. She still has tears. Christine Brennan has the story of a young woman trying to slow things down in the final steps of a lifelong rush.
1992 Olympic bronze medalist Dominique Dawes never thought she'd be going to another Olympic Games. Not at the ripe old age of 19. Not when most of her friends had gone off to college. Not when her body had changed, when 5 more inches made her 5'2", and every tumbling pass suddenly became more difficult.
I knew I was going to probably retire in the middle of that just because of school and everything. And going away to college was something that was one of my #1 goals then. But knowing that this was going to be the only time I would ever get a chance of going to an Olympics again, and I thought, you know, it'd be great to go for it and try my best.
I actually am surprised. I thought she would go on to college and compete for a college because that had always been the one thing I had promised her, come heck or high water, that she was going to go to college and be on a scholarship and be able to get an education, and that's what gymnastics was going to give her.
But Dawes stuck around, sweeping all the gold medals at the 1994 National Championships, fighting injuries in 1995, then winning the U.S. Olympic trials to make her 2nd Olympic team.
Okay, be positive here. And very nice.
By her side, since the day she walked in the door to sign up for her very first gymnastics class 13 years ago, has been Kelly Hill.
I think Dominique and I have a very special relationship, and I work more with her mentally and what she's up to doing, and I try to be more patient to what she can do or wants to do that day. And when it's a timeout time, we have a timeout. We sit down and talk about what's going wrong or not wrong. And if I'm losing my patience, I'll tell her I'm losing my patience now and not just lose my patience. If you're too tired, you can take a nap and we'll come back. You have to decide what you're going to get done today. I am not going to stand here and watch you cry for no reason. Come on, stay with this. You don't want to make Beam an all-day affair here.
It's a demanding world, one where bodies of steel wire often conceal emotions of glass. A world where a performance based on years of conditioning can be influenced by the simplest mental exercise. At the Olympic trials, Dawes papered her hotel room with positive sayings.
I put quotes on my wall and just read them when I woke up, and that helped me for my workouts. The positive sayings were all over the walls and on the mirror and the doors and the lamp and things like that. Everywhere we'd look, there would be one.
Dawes' bag of good luck quotes has made the trip to Atlanta, where she will once again look to them for inspiration to try to lead America's best ever women's gymnastics team to an unprecedented gold medal.
To be a leader of this team kind of gets me a little nervous, but I do like having a little bit more pressure on myself. I don't know, I just want to go in there and do the best that I can for the team and help them come to the top.
What Dominique Dawes has done is to give this team stability during a period of key injuries. Robin?
All right, Jack, also a member of our Olympic team, Kathy Johnson-Clark, who won 2 medals in gymnastics in '84. I know you've been following the team closely, and we heard Christine Brennan in the beginning say the ripe old age of 19. That is considered old, but that may not be the case in the coming years.
I think this is going to be a great Olympic Games because there are a lot of older gymnasts who are going to do very well. They're taller, they're more mature. It's going to be a breath of fresh air. It doesn't mean there's not going to be the little bitties there, too, because they're definitely going to be there. But Dominique is right in there with all of the other gymnast. Her biggest challenge will probably be the compulsory competition. She got off to a weak start when she focused on the Olympic Games. At the championships, had a very weak compulsory performance, but came back so incredibly strong in the optionals. And I'll tell you what, her optionals are as strong as anybody's in the world. And if she can get into the finals, she can do well here. And you use that emotional strength that she has developed through some disappointments in her career to finish it off here at the Olympic Games.
Another Dominique who's going through a lot of emotion, and then is Dominique Moceanu, of course, with the stress fracture. How will that affect her?
That stress fracture was diagnosed June 10th, which is just over 5 weeks ago. And really, I'm sure everybody would say it takes 6 weeks to really rest it and get back into competition. As you can see right here, she really wraps the leg to get some support. The good news is just on Friday, June 12th, she actually performed in an exhibition. She did all of her optional routines except for optional floor, and that is going to be the hardest one on her leg. But it looks like she will definitely compete at these Olympic Games, and she doesn't seem too hampered by it.
Shannon Miller won 5 medals in Barcelona. She has been hampered with tendonitis in her left wrist. She hasn't been able to practice that much.
This wrist has been bothering her since the beginning of the year, and I think this is the perfect example of turning negative into a positive. There is no way gymnasts can train the way they trained when they were 13 and 14 years of age, and I think her coach would have been tempted to do so. But now with a little injury here, you kind of really have to rest it and make sure she's healthy. And I think that's helped her keep her a little bit more relaxed, hold back just a tad so she can last through these Olympic Games. She comes in with a lot of respect, and I think people are expecting good things from her.
You know who really earned my respect was Amy Chow at the trials. I mean, she falls on the beam, hurts her face, gets back up, qualifies for the team.
Amy Chow does some of the hardest routines in the entire competition. It was really unbelievable that she could handle the kind of pressure she handled in the competition. And on her last event at the trials, it was the balance beam, which is always just the most nerve-wracking events of all. Watch this. She is completely off on the first skill, and she hits the side of her face just pretty hard on the side of the beam. But look at this. She finishes strong with a triple twist, unheard of, to make the Olympic team. Now watch this. If you thought it looked scary from the other angle, take a look here. She's completely off. Her face goes into the side of the balance beam. The good news was she really just abraded it, so it wasn't quite as bad as it looked.
Yeah, that's an Olympian. That's what it takes.
Absolutely.
What other women from other countries should we be looking for?
Well, boy, there's going to be some great gymnasts here. Lilia Podkopayeva of Ukraine is probably the favorite. She's the reigning world and European champion, and she is just phenomenal and really has peaked for these Olympic Games. But I think Mo Huilan of China is the one to watch for. She would have won the World Championship. She fell on her last event, her best event. If she puts it all together here, it's going to be a really close competition. And then, of course, the Romanians. You always have to consider them in every competition. They're going to be very strong in the team. But the Americans are going to be right in there. It's going to be such a close, exciting Olympic Games.
It's going to be fun to watch. One of our stronger teams in quite some time. Let's talk about the men for a moment. You got to talk about Vitaly Sherba. I mean, he is incredible.
I tell you what, not many people are expecting him to win, but you would be a total fool to count him out. No one competes harder than Vitaly Sherba. And what's interesting about him, if early in the competition, if he makes a little bitty mistake, he gets so angry that then he's even better. Watch the way he goes after these landings. You can expect to see him go after those landings. Now, this is Ivan Ivankov. Very sad story. He had won the World Championships, was certainly a favorite here. Doing a difficult vault, and unfortunately, he blew out his knee in the last 2 weeks, and he will not be in the Olympic Games.
The U.S. men are not as strong as the women's team. They're a little bit older. The average age is 23. They've got a lot of experience. What do you see from the men's team?
Well, I tell you what, they're led by John Roethlisberger, who is one of the most tremendous athletes in this country right now. He works so incredibly hard. As a team, they're really focused on moving up in the standings. They finished third, surprisingly, at the World Championships, just shocked everybody, and then dropped to 9th place at the World Championships. So they really want to improve their optionals, which is the key to their success here. And I think they could do that. If they could finish in the top 6 and maybe get some guys in finals, they'd be very excited.
Yeah, so it's more of a team concept with them as opposed to individual effort.
Absolutely.
All right, Kathy, thank you very much. And Kathy will be by in the next hour to analyze the importance of sticking those landings. Coming up later here on the preview show, Janet Evans, America's First Lady of Swimming, hopes for one last shot at gold. Brooke Bennett hopes it's her time for glory and to become America's swimming sweetheart. Jack Edwards will take a look at cycling. Does two-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong have enough to outpedal the rest of the field? We'll chat about that later right here in hot Atlanta. Yes, we've been talking about the weather The temperatures, the sun is going down. It's just after 8:30 Eastern time, and look, still approaching 90 warm degrees. Back with much more in just a moment. Listening to the uninitiated. Here to explain one of the finer points of the sport is Kathy Johnson-Clark, 1984 team silver medalist and bronze medalist in the balance beam. And 12 years later, she still has more than a few moves left.
The perfect landing. No matter what the age or the level, every gymnast wants to stick their dismount. And at the Olympic Games, when medals are sometimes determined by thousandths of a point, it's not just fun, it's critical. For the judges, the landing is the least subjective part of the routine. Every hop after the landing, every little step is a definite deduction, at least a half a tenth, maybe as much as 2/10. History has shown us that a gymnast must stick their dismounts to win. In 1992, Trent Demas, a long shot on the high bar, stole the gold medal with a perfect landing. And when my teammate in 1984, Mary Lou Retton, needed a perfect 10 on the vault to win the all-around, she came up with the landing of a lifetime. Gymnasts who consistently stick their landings the best have several things in common. First, they have to have a complete mastery of the technique. In other words, if they're working too hard just to make the skill, chances are they're just happy to land on their feet, but they're not going to stick the landing. Secondly, have you ever noticed how cats always land on their feet? Gymnasts have to have that uncanny cat-like sense of where they are in the air throughout the entire skill relative to the ground so they can stick it. And they have to make split-second adjustments before they land. Then finally, incredible strength to stop the momentum and freeze the position. Sound complicated? Well, let's simplify it. You'll either see them over-rotate and take a step, under-rotate the skill and take a step, or stick it right in the middle. That's called over-rotation because I went too far and had to take a step backwards. It's very common to do in competition when there's a lot of adrenaline and there's a desire to really do something well. Sometimes you overdo it. The opposite of that is under-rotation, and that happens sometimes when a gymnast is trying too hard to stick and she holds back and comes up short. Now that's under rotation. Remember, it can be caused by a gymnast trying too hard to stick the landing or doing the skill improperly or not having the power to complete the skill. To perform a perfect landing, you must do the skill really well, spot the mat visually early in the skill, and then bend your legs on the landing. Looks easy, right? Sometimes it is. But no matter how many times you do it in practice, there is nothing like competing in the Olympics when you have one shot to be perfect.
Yes! Yeah, Mary Lou did stick that landing. You, my friends, you still got it. You still got it.
Yeah, well, notice I'm just working on the landings, though, now.
Oh, a little bit different. Well, speaking of the landings and how important, you showed us how important that is. Dominique Moceanu with the right tibia, the stress fracture, how will that affect her ability to stick the landing?
It's probably obvious, Robin, that that is the most difficult aspect of gymnastics when you have a stress fracture in your leg. It's going to be very, very hard. Not to mention the pain factor. It's going to be difficult because she hasn't been able to train it because she's been protecting that leg and trying to let the bone heal. So it's going to be hard to say if she's going to be able to come up with those landings. She's a pretty spunky kid, though.
She is. All right, Kathy, thank you very much. We'll look forward to your reports throughout the games. You've got the rest of the night off, all right? Okay, but don't you go anywhere. Here's what you can expect in our final hour.